Good morning, everyone. We're just going to wait for all the attendees to arrive. Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting for everyone to roll in. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first presentation of day 2 of the 13th annual CUNY Accessibility Conference. I hope you all enjoyed the warm welcome from Denise Maybank, Ladine Jacob, and my name is Chris Fleming, and I'll be your moderator for this session, which is titled Disability Nuance, Understanding Composites and Complexities for Optimal ADA Compliance. Before we get started, I just want to mention a couple quick housekeeping items. Captions are available. You can enable those at the bottom of your screen using the CC button. Our ASL interpreters will be spotlighted for all to see, but please pin them to your screen so that you can have an uninterrupted view. Attendees do not have microphone access. If you'd like to ask a question, please post it in the chat. There will be a dedicated Q&A session during the last 10 minutes of the presentation, beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. The session will go from 12 to 1:15. If you require video to sign a question or microphone access to voice your question during the Q&A, please make your request in the chat so we can update your microphone and video settings accordingly. Please share any relevant resources or links with others by entering that into the chat so we can share out with other attendees. And lastly, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat so that our tech team can do our best to assist. So with all of that out of the way, it's my pleasure to introduce Faith Fogelman, Director of the TRIO program from CUNY Queensborough Community College. Faith, the floor is yours.
Kingsborough.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We're the king. They're the queen. Thank you very, very much for that introduction. And I also want to tell you that I'm very, very happy to be here this morning. However, it is very difficult to follow Vice Chancellor Maybank. Her presentation was terrific, just terrific. And Ms. Jacob introduced her appropriately, and the presentation really reflected who she is. I apologize if some of my material reflects hers, but interestingly, my presentation will reify, will concretize what she said. I also apologize to those who attended my presentation at Kingsborough's DAWS workshop series last week, because some of the material will be repetitive, but the theme is different. The focus is different. The focus will be on how do we get students with disabilities from the point of entry to the point of graduation. When you think about it, first generation students, student athletes, low-income students, students who are immigrants, minority students, older students are what? They're students. Students with disabilities are no different. They're students. They comprise a certain group, but individuals within the group share statuses with others. So there's a lot of intersectionality. My presentation today will be divided into two sections. First of all, I'm going to talk about the who. No, not the singing group, not the singing group. The who. Who on campus is a student with a disability. Then I'm going to talk about the how. How best can we move students forward so that they are successful? And I'm talking about students with disabilities. I see a comment right away. I like the who. Well, who, capitalized or not, is very important because there is no one student profile among any group. If you look at first generation students, you wouldn't say that student X represents her group. No. When you look at students with disabilities, the diversity among the individuals and among the disabilities is very, very vast. We all know that. We all know that. But let me go over some content that we know and some which may be a little new. First of all, when a student walks into the disability office, what do we know? We know what we see. We know what we see, and if we're providers with visual disabilities, we may not see at all or see something of the person. The student has not presented himself. For all we know, the student has an invisible disability. We don't know functional limitations. We just have, if we have vision, what is available to us. We don't know the story of the student. We don't know if the situation, I hope I'm not going too quickly. We don't know if the disability is congenital. We don't know if the disability is adventitious. If adventitious, we don't know the time of onset. We don't know the support that the individual gets. All we know is that somebody walked into our office and is self-presenting as somebody with a disability. We also don't know the composites of the individual. Some people have various diagnoses, none of which has complete expression. Somebody may have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. They may have a cognitive diagnosis with a physical diagnosis. The physical diagnosis could be visible. It could be invisible. There are degrees. We have to let the student tell his or her story, because otherwise we just don't know. We don't know if the individual, if the student identifies as somebody with a disability or identifies more as a member of a minority group, a religious group, an ethnic group. We know nothing. We have to hear that student's story. And from the point of view of the student, it may be difficult to tell the story. When you think about it, when you go to sign up for tutoring, the person who's taking your information does not ask a series of questions. You're not asked, all right, you want math tutorials. Did you receive math tutorials last semester? How did you do? Do you think you did better with tutorials? Did you ever get tutored in another subject? Oh, English. No one who signs up for a tutorial has to be dense with information about his tutorial background. Students who come to the disability office are asked a lot of questions. They're asked the questions to get the proper accommodation. But some students may be very uncomfortable about telling a story or telling the story completely. There's a very good article called, Should I Tell? Shouldn't I tell? Who should I tell? When should I tell? And students may feel, okay, it's obvious that I have a visual disability, I have a cognitive disability, I may be entitled to accommodations for both, but you know what, right now, I'll just settle for getting the accommodation for my physical disability. Because if I self-disclose anything else, I may be stigmatized, or I don't feel comfortable, or the situation has, it's a new onset, or it's an adventitious situation and I've been dealing with it and I don't want to deal with it. So it's very difficult for a lot of students to A, come to the disability office, and B, tell their story in full, and 3, respond to a lot of questions to get the accommodations. That's the way the system works. As you were told, I run the TRIO office at Kingsborough, but for 9 years I ran the disability office at City Tech. So I'm sensitive to the fact that students have different ways of disclosing, different comfort levels. It's very individualized. And what do we do when we get the information? I'll hold that question for a later time. Let's go back to the who. When the students come in, they may have had a lot of support from family members to self-identify, or they may have had family members who never viewed the disability as a social issue, as a functional limitation issue, but strictly as a medical issue, and a medical issue that needs to be cured. Yes, that's called the biomedical model. And individuals with congenital conditions may have internalized this. So they're not that interested when they come to campus in being a member of a group. They just know they have a problem that makes them different than other students. And they want to get what they need to get through classes. There are other students who belong to the functional limitation model, unfortunately also called the deficit model. It's not so much medically based as functionally based. What can you do? What do you need? Am I going too quickly? What will help you? What will be too much for you? And students sometimes want more, sometimes they want less. And a conversation has to take place between the disability provider and the student. What will work? Some students are very embarrassed by their functional limitations. Some students are not. Again, there's no one profile, and there's no one approach, and there's no one right approach, because what works for one student in terms of self-disclosure may not work for another student. Both may have the same congenital diagnosis, but it doesn't matter. Personality reigns more supreme, and people may be hesitant to fully present their picture, at least at first. And then there are students who belong to the socio-political model. That doesn't mean they can't belong to the other two models, but these are students who believe in being active for disability rights. These are the individuals at the forefront of ADA. These are the individuals who, when Jerry Lewis had his telethon, said, no, 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 the medical model doesn't work for us. We don't have to be cured. There's nothing that has to be fixed. We want rights, and we're entitled to get them. And they're very active. Where students who belong to other models may say, you know, I appreciate ADA. Thank goodness for these people who advocate. But I couldn't advocate for myself, because I've always thought of my situation as an individual situation. I'm glad that ADA was passed, but if it depended on me, it wouldn't have been passed. And maybe that would have been okay, because I'm an individual. I have an issue. I'll come to the disability office. I'll get what I need, and then I'll go home. I don't have to be at the forefront of anything, because my problem is individual. It's not collective. I don't subscribe to anything that puts me in a group. My friends don't have disabilities. I'm the only one. And in fact, I like it that way because I'm a little special. But even when there is a limitation, if we go to a restaurant and the restaurant is not wheelchair accessible or whatever the issue is, it's my issue. I don't have to be out there making a scene. I appreciate the others, but it's not for me. So what I'm putting together here is we have to consider personality. We have to consider what the individual views as his functional limitation. I once had a client who was totally blind when I worked for an agency for the blind. And this person said to me, look, I'm not blind. I just can't see. I don't need any accommodation. I don't, and it was almost, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry sometimes, because the person would come to my office and refuse any kind of assistance and find her way to my desk, and from the desk found her way to the chair. But she didn't want assistance because from her point of view, she couldn't see, she wasn't blind. Did I have the right to take that identity away from her? No. Did I have the responsibility to explore what the challenges are going through life that way? Yes, I did. And I explored them. And we had a wonderful relationship, but she did what she wanted to do. The students who come to college need to have a lot of credit. They need to be given a lot of credit. I'm not talking about academic courses. I'm talking about the fact that it takes a certain personality type to come to a university, to come to a college where people are different than they are, where they don't know the expectations, the academic or otherwise, where they're going to interact with people who may not understand them, may not want to understand them. And this is true for all subsets. And this point is underscored for people with disabilities. And so we as practitioners are kind of stuck. The challenge is, with all the variables, with all the possibilities of who that person is, do we maximize the disability? Do we minimize the disability? Do we assume the disability is the identity of the student? Well, that's a big mistake. Or do we minimize it and say, you're just like everyone else, but. So relating to people is a very special skill, and knowing with whom you're talking and getting to know the student is critical for the student to progress and feel integrated. And that is the key. We want all students, especially those with disabilities, to be integrated. Vincent Tinto speaks about integration as the primary persistence variable. Of course, he was talking about students in senior colleges, dormitory colleges, but he modified his theory and said that at community colleges and at other commuter colleges, Brooklyn College, Queens College, integration is also important. It may not be through clubs. It may not be through social activities. It may be in the classroom, but integration is important. His counterpart, Alexander Aston, talked about involvement. The difference is involvement is measurable. How much time do you spend is measurable. How much time you spend studying for an exam. How much time do you spend socializing? How much time do you spend eating in the cafeteria and trying to meet new friends? That's a form of involvement. Where integration is not measurable, it's a feeling. Do I belong? Am I validated? Are there people like me? Are there people not like me? And that's a good thing for me, because nobody is being intrusive. Is my personality acceptable? Does it even matter to me? Are there other opportunities for me to connect with students beyond disability? If I'm a member of a minority group, if I'm a first-generation student, if I'm a member of a religious group, am I validated through those opportunities? You can't measure integration. It is highly personal, but we know that students will persist on any campus if they feel integrated with the college community. So students with disabilities are no different. And integration, there are three kinds of theories in terms of students with disabilities. One is the mere exposure theory. Okay, students will, if you're social and you want friends, students will be more comfortable with me if they just see me in the classroom. Then they'll see me as a student, just like they are, consumed with studying for math, just like they are, and my disability will not be a big factor, if it is a factor at all to other students, mere exposure. Then we have the extended, let me see here, the extended theory, which means that students who know somebody whose cousin has a disability might be more comfortable with students with disabilities, because when the individual goes to the friend's house, he sees that the cousin uses a wheelchair, has a learning disability, and he's totally comfortable with that. The third is the integration theory, which piggybacks on Tinto, which says you have to communicate and be comfortable. Students without disabilities, students with disabilities, on some level, even if you are an introvert or you tend to isolate, on some level, you will have to integrate with other students on campus. Even in the cafeteria, where you're online, but you're not sure that the next one is online or not, you have to be able to communicate. So we are a very diverse campus, university. There are all kinds of students, all subsets, all personalities, all intersectionalities. And the theme for disability providers is know thy student. Who is he? How does he relate to his disability? What does he want? How does he want to progress? Does he want to belong to clubs? Does he want to belong to clubs that have nothing to do with disability? Does he get support from his significant others? Are his friends people without disabilities? These are all variables. And so our job as providers of services is to help each student with his own needs, with his own personality, progress, persist, and graduate. Now, this is ideal. This is ideal. I know that what I'm saying takes time. To get to know each student takes a lot of time. Some disability providers have mini groups, and by mini, I mean no more than 4 students who agree to be in a group setting, a mini group setting, and have conversations so that the disability provider, as well as the other 3 students, get to know him. And he understands that there are different ways to approach this, to approach disability, to self-advocate when necessary, or to make a respectful choice not to self-advocate. But we as disability providers have to go beyond what is expressed by students. To be a campus where people feel comfortable, we frequently have to go behind the scenes and do work, either with students or with a group of students on our own. Let me explain. And I must say, and I will tell you this point blank, I share the office at Kingsborough with the accessibility services. They do a terrific job at what I'm about to say. And I'm sure others do too. And I hope that they're not angry with me after this presentation, because I'm going to make suggestions which actually reflect extra work. So let me apologize in advance. We want our students to be integrated. We want to understand our students. So we have to look at all the sources. Let's go to the cafeteria and eat. Students with disabilities, with all kinds of disabilities, may not be able to navigate the cafeteria the way people without disabilities do. They may need someone, something, some accommodation, some modification so that they can enter the cafeteria. And if they are people with mobility disabilities, if they are wheelchair users, they don't have to reach up. They don't have to ask somebody, can you get me that cup? If they are using a cane or crutches, they don't have to be clumsy and put their mobility equipment aside. If they have a visual disability, they know the layout. Something needs to be done for equity and access so that students with certain types of disabilities are comfortable. What about students who are hard of hearing? What if they can't communicate well? What can we do? I don't have all the answers. Believe me, I don't have the answers. I have the questions. And these are questions that need to be asked for fuller integration, for better reception, so that no individual student has to ask. It's already set in place. The same is true with the library. Library is a tough place to navigate if you have certain kinds of disabilities. What about the general campus layout? What about situations that may occur if a student at the high end of the visual disability spectrum has a guide dog and another student has asthma and it's raining? That guide dog can set off an asthmatic attack. We have to think about that. What if the student with the guide dog is in a laboratory? That dog can't go into the laboratory. That dog needs to be taken away for a temporary period of time. How do we do that? How do we communicate with students that that may have to be the case? And then when we go back to our offices, are we addressing the whole student? When we give accommodations to students, do we say, we did it, you're getting extra time, you're getting the note taker, you're getting the interpreter, you're getting the technology you need, we've done our job? Well, getting to know the student means taking it a step further. The student may be may have a social personality and may want to affiliate with clubs, whether they're disability related or not. Do we explore any possible social challenge that that student has? In other words, do we address something that can make or break whether the student persists and feel comfortable beyond the concrete accommodations? Well, tell me, let's discuss how difficult it is for you to socialize. It may be because of a cognitive issue. It may be because of a speech disability. You know, nobody has patience with me. I'd love to be in a group, but then when I'm called upon, you know, I'm okay. It's an invisible disability, but boy, do I hate it when people ask me questions. And in the classroom, I could just die, because when the professor calls on me, it seems that I don't want to make a contribution, but I do. But you know what? I don't want people to, you know, start looking at their cell phones because I can't get the words out the way I'd like to, with the speed I'd like to. Do we explore the extra components of campus life so that a student eases and feels comfortable in other situations? What about a terrific athlete? Some student athletes may have cognitive diagnoses and they may not affiliate with the disability office, and they don't even necessarily realize that there's a disability office or that they have a diagnosis or that we can make them better students beyond being better athletes. But what about students with physical disabilities? Do we take the time to speak to athletics and to see what can be done with a student who has some kind of disability, but also an athletic talent? Do we do that with our theater arts department? Do we have relationships all over the campus? Because, you know, working with students with disabilities is not just the job of the disability office. Just like working with first-generation students, it's not just the job of offices that address their needs. Is there an integrated whole that students can enter and feel comfortable with dialogue? Let me tell you what else we can do to really enhance the academic journey of students. And this may have been done on other campuses. Students with disabilities are like all other students in terms of the fact that most of them have no idea what they want to do after graduation. Do they want a professional entry-level job? Do they want to transfer to a senior college? A lot of them end up in liberal arts. They're not sure, blah, blah, blah. It's a disservice for students to major in something, pass all the academic requirements, and not know what the challenges are once they are employed. Do we work with the chairs of the departments? Do we work with workforce development so that we may, I don't know, I'm asking questions, so that students know what they're getting into when they major in graphic arts? This is not a suggestion that we should rule out students. Students are very good at knowing what they can and cannot do, just like we all are. But students may not realize what the challenges are in that major, in that profession, with respect to their specific disability. Should it be something that's put out in the form of a journal or something that is available to them online? People need to know that, because otherwise they may get into a situation where they don't realize that accommodations at that job may not be enough. They need to know the challenges up front. And by the way, that works both ways. Students with disabilities who are in service professions need to extend their sensitivity to others. Let me give you an example. I knew a student who was a hospitality major, and she graduated, and she didn't have a mobility disability. She had another disability. And the hotel chain was looking to accommodate people with disabilities. So she suggested, and the hotel chain supported the fact that there should be rooms for people with mobility disabilities, wider doors, for example, wider doors. But the hotel chain made a mistake, you see. They thought that all people with mobility disabilities are A, single, or don't have a partner, and B, small. So the hotel put in all of these wide doored rooms, little beds. Well, that doesn't work if you are a person with a mobility disability who is not so little. And it doesn't work if you have a partner. So people with disabilities going into service professions need to also be aware that there are other people with other needs, and their sensitivity to self now needs to be extended to people with other situations, other conditions, other disabilities. We need to work more with faculty. I know, and this is, I'm not telling tales, that there are faculty members who are very smart, PhDs, but who have never, ever had to understand the needs of individuals with disabilities. Parenthetically, I have been told, and I have read, that when there's any kind of presentation about disability, 75% of the audience has some connection with disability, either self, family, work, but that means 25% do not. And so when we advocate for our students, when we advocate to find out the majors and the challenges and what needs to be done and what students need to be successful in that major, that professor, that chair may be part of the 75% who have very limited, if any, understanding as to disability needs. And we know who they are. And it's our job as disability providers to make the case so that they stretch their sensitivities, their awarenesses, and their ability to provide services and to have the foresight to understand that if their students in their major graduate, what would be the specific challenges for them? In other words, disability providers need to be more integrated themselves with the campus community so that when any student with a disability comes to the disability office and goes around the campus, they leave with one thought: I'm understood. I'm understood. I didn't have to ask for something. It's there. Or I asked, and I got what I wanted. Or I asked, and I got very close, if not exactly what I wanted, and nobody overdid it for me. Nobody underdid it for me. Vice Chancellor Maybank made a very good point. She said that you can't change attitudes. You can't. So what can we do so that students without disabilities become more sensitive and become more aware? You know, in today's day and age, and perhaps throughout time, people are very focused on self. So if you're a diabetic and you know that you have to take medicine at a certain time of the day, you're very aware of it. But you may not be aware that somebody else with a diagnosis needs to take medication at a certain time of the day. And that may be a professor. And so when he sees a student leaving at 11:15 every day, does that professor say, wait, maybe that student is like me. I have to take medication at certain times. Maybe that student needs to take. And do other students think along that line too? So that we need to increase how people in general can go from self to other, not be judgmental, whether they have a disability or not. It's very important for progression. It's very important for employment. Workforce development people who facilitate internships, jobs in retail or professional jobs in industry need to be aware of how best to facilitate. Sometimes students do very well in employment, but their co-workers are the issue. So if we practice on campus what needs to be done in life, and we give each student what he or she needs to go forward at his comfort level, at her comfort level, to advocate, to understand, and to advocate with industry what needs to be done. Because if industry wants our graduates, they need to broaden their doors so that their workers and their physical plants accommodate our students too. The title for this presentation has to do with composites. We also have to begin to think that nobody is a textbook case. If somebody has a cognitive diagnosis, he is not that diagnosis. And he may have other unique diagnoses, which renders him a very unique person in this world. And do we understand that the strengths in a certain situation may not carry over to the strengths in another situation? I reference dealing with students beyond providing academics and saying, okay, I'm done. If we explore the social aspect of students, we begin to see that they may do very well academically. They may be very self-sufficient, but it's the social sphere where they fall apart, which causes depression. We have to understand that it's not the learning that this particular student, for which the student has his greatest challenges, but interaction with other people. John Rady and Katherine Johnson wrote a very good book, I hope I'm not going too fast, called Shadow Syndromes. And Shadow Syndromes talks about these composites. Person has a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and may do very well academically and not socially. Or the reverse, may do very well socially and not academically. So if we just provide the concrete accommodations, we are going in an incomplete direction. We need to take the time to know our individual student, comfort level, personality, support at home, how he views his disability, what he needs, and not compare what he needs to the needs of someone we think has a comparable situation. So know thy student, know the composites, and know what we need to do beyond the student coming to us, relationships with the whole campus, so that students know the majors, so that they perhaps can compete athletically, on stage, in theaters. The cafeteria issue needs to be addressed, the library issue, even the technology areas. We need to inform, we need to increase awareness, but we also need to work on ourselves, because everything in life comes back to the self. How do we interact with the student? What are our biases? What do we need to do to move that student forward? Nobody's going to be 100% happy with every situation on campus. No student leaves any college and says they were perfect. But we have to move in the direction to become a more perfect union, to become a more perfect environment, so that people do feel integrated and happy, and that they persist. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Maura. I'm going to now open it up to some of the questions that came in, and feel free to continue to send in more questions. So the first question, Faith, that we have for you is, if I can pull up my, so the first question that came in is, what can be done to facilitate or coordinate with faculty and staff with disabilities so that we can be better providers to our students? For example, the placement of technology in classrooms is not always accessible to faculty with physical challenges.
You're talking about faculty members with disabilities?
I believe the question is, What can be done to facilitate or coordinate with faculty
with
and
that.
staff?
There's a lot of advocacy that has to go on, and there's a lot of education that has to go on. It's not just the role of the disability provider or the disability office. Chairs are very important. The chair people need to communicate to faculty what the needs of all students are, whether it's students with disabilities, whether it's first-generation students who don't have a frame of reference, because faculty members may not be aware of the nuances that need to be part of pedagogy in the year 2022. People may not be aware. How do we make them aware? You have to go to the chair, you have to go out of the disability office with sanction. It may be the disability director and not the counselor, but somebody needs to go out there and advocate and explain the nuances. Like I said, many faculty members may have PhDs in plasma physics, but that doesn't mean that they know about disability nuances, invisible disabilities. Oh, you look perfectly fine to me. So a lot of education needs to take place, but it needs to take place on an ongoing basis. It can't just be in the beginning of the semester or at key times. I must tell you, at Kingsborough, I will make a plug for Dr. Stella Woodruff, who is an excellent role model in this capacity, and Peter Santiago as well.
The person who asked the question further clarified a little bit and asked and suggested that the question was actually more so, how do faculty and staff with disabilities better support students with disabilities?
Well, that has to do with communication. First of all, faculty members with disabilities, is that what you said? Faculty members with disabilities?
Faculty and staff.
With disabilities. First of all, they may not be sensitive to other disabilities. They may not know about the range of disabilities on campus. They may not know. So they need to be educated. And maybe there needs to be, under the provost, some kind of forum so that faculty with disabilities, disability providers, and students talk. We can't assume that faculty members with disabilities are necessarily aware or sensitive to other disability types. They may also not be aware of up-to-date technologies, and they may not be aware of disability nuance. Because as I said, people may have shadow syndromes, formae frustas, which are incomplete diagnoses. We have to educate. We're on a college campus. Education is not a one-way street from faculty to students. It is an all-round process with all members of the college community. Put them together with others.
Thank you. So the second question that we have is, I'm interested in the distinction your client made, and this was sent about 20 minutes into the presentation. Yeah. I'm interested in the distinction your client made between being blind and not being able to see. Where does that come from? What does this reveal about societal attitudes?
Well, I think that's the primary question. My client, she did not want to associate or affiliate with people who had the same, quote now, disability as she had. She saw herself as an individual who couldn't see. That was her functional limitation. In her mind, she drew the distinction between being blind and whatever that meant to her. And I think what it meant is more limitations than what she had, or more limitations than what she thought she had. And self. She drew the line, and that helped her. That boosted her self-esteem. Her identity was not being a person with a disability. It was being a person who could not see. And I had no business to try to take that identity away from her.
So the third part of that question, I think, was what does this reveal about societal attitudes?
Well, what does it reveal about societal attitudes? It's a very, very good question. It means that people are grouped and stratified. That's what it means. And she internalized that. So she must have had experiences in life where she was talked to in a certain way, or treated contemptuously, or treated with disrespect. And when she became an adult, there was no way that was going to happen. She was a very assertive individual, and she was not going to let other people talk down to her, perhaps the way she was talked down to as a child, as a young person growing up, because society does stratify. If you are a person with a disability, you're here. If you don't have a disability, you're here. But there's a problem with that, isn't it? There's a problem, because what if you have a disability and you're somebody's boss? Then what happens? But society in general will tend to lessen and diminish the humanity of people who are different. Minority groups experience this, certain religious groups experience this, people with disabilities experience this, immigrants experience this. And I think that we're moving towards a more equitable society, but it takes time and it can take generations. I think I addressed that latter point now. I think I did.
Thank you. So another question that came in on this same topic, there's two more right now, is a comment and then a question. I also think it reveals the pervasive use of disability as metaphors for negative things. How many people use the word blind when they mean ignorant, thoughtless, or unintelligent?
Well,
that may be more of a reflection or a comment. Thank you for that, the person who sent that in. Possibly the last question, do you work in coordination with the State Office for Vocational Rehabilitation?
I don't, but the Disability Office at Kingsborough does. We have a wonderful leads director who does. And I think the question behind the question is there facilitation so that the individual with a disability can transition easily into employment? I think that's the question behind the question. And I think that Nick does a very, very good job with that. GM Petrucci, he does a very, very good job with that. But not everybody uses his services, and not everybody needs great facilitation, but just awareness. That's very important. We can't stop on campus. We have to make sure that when people go out in the world, they can advocate, or that things are done in a respectful manner once they leave and they graduate.
Thank you.
I'd like to have one last word here. We talk about disability. There is a very famous musician with a disability, and he said as follows: disability means being a member of a group to which anyone could eventually belong. And I think if we bear that in mind, we will be more sensitive and more aware of what's being done, because we're doing for others what we may need for ourselves.
Thank you, Faith. And in closing, so I'll just say, I think that wraps everything up. And thank you very much to Faith from Kingsborough Community College at CUNY. And thank you everyone for coming. We look forward to seeing you at the next session, which will take place at 1:45 in about 45 minutes, promoting universal design for all aspects of instruction. What's a faculty need to know? Please join us by using the same Zoom conference link you used to attend this session. We'll see you there, and take care.
Thank you.
Hey, Terry, are you still with us? No, okay.
No, he looked like he had to leave. He said if something comes up, give him a call.
Right. Oh, but I just saw that he made me host before he left, so.
Oh yeah.
All
See
right,
everyone later.
Yep, see you later.
Hi, Claire. I didn't say hi to you.
Hello.
See you in a little bit.
I just saw the event is over. Okay.
But you made me the host, so that works. I was
Oh,
gonna
okay. All
end
right.
in a
But
minute.
what time is the next one?
1:45.
1:45. Okay, I should be back then. All right. Okay. So you can
Actually-
close it.
And we
Terry?
need to be back probably 10 to 15 minutes prior to that, right?
Yeah, so I'd say about 1:25 if you can, Terry.
1:25. Okay. All right. 1:25. No problem.
All right, we'll see you later. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Take care, guys.
Good job, Chris and Moira.
Thanks. Thanks for all the support.
I'm starting an exam at the start of the next session, so I will just join as an attendee. And if you need help, just recruit me.
Okay, sounds good.
It's funny the people who stick around to spectate on this portion. Take care, everyone.
All right, ending the meeting now. Jasmine and Destiny, we'll see you later.
I think you'll have other providers, but it was so nice working with you guys this morning.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you
Yes,
very
thank
much
you
for
so much.
Have a
Yeah.
wonderful day.
Have a great conference, rest of the conference.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.